What if the company you're waiting for never comes? What if what you thought would hold you up is simply no longer there? In old age, many still believe that it will be family who catches them when they fall, who offers a hand during the slow days, who stays through the silences. But what if that doesn't happen? What if instead of support, what you find is distance, neglect, or even abandonment? It's not always selfishness. Sometimes life just sweeps everyone away in their own direction, and so you, who gave so much, find yourself walking alone. There's something no one says out loud, but it weighs heavy. A silent cause, hidden in the cracks of daily life, quietly eroding the dignity and well-being of thousands of older adults. It's not an illness or a tragedy, it's an absence. It's waiting without an answer. It's the habit of relying emotionally on bonds that are no longer there or only halfway present. And the hardest part isn't the loneliness itself. It's not knowing how to live with it without feeling like you've lost your worth. This comes from someone who's walked this path for many years. I've accompanied men and women between the ages of 60 and 90 through deep processes of transformation. I've heard their stories, their tears, their weariness. I've seen how they come back to life when they realize they can still hold themselves up from a place they never expected. Because yes, there is a way to stand when no one else is holding you. And it doesn't depend on your children calling, or your partner being alive, or someone coming to rescue you. It's something more intimate, stronger, more yours. Today, I want to show you that forgotten key. It's not about empty motivation or self-help talk. It's a truth that's always been there. But we were never taught to see it. It's something you can reclaim right where you are. No expensive treatments, no grand gestures. All you need is a new perspective. And what's coming could change the way you live with your solitude, the way you understand your body, the way you rewrite your story. I invite you to keep listening. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you knows it deserves to feel better. You're not broken. You're not alone. There is still a path. What comes next isn't a recipe. It's a presence, a way to reconnect with the dignity and self-love that have always been yours. If this message is already resonating with you, subscribe. Share this video with someone else who also needs to feel supported from a different place. And stay. Because what's coming isn't easy, but it might just be the most freeing thing you've heard in a long time. This is the beginning of a journey toward a kind of love that doesn't depend on anyone else. Let's go together. And if you've made it this far, it's because something we said resonated with you. Maybe you've already felt it, that sensation of being in a place that was once warm and full of voices, and now sits in silence. And it's not just the absence of people. It's the absence of a mirror reflecting back who you are. It's that question you barely dare to ask. What if no one ever takes care of me again? What if I'm no longer a priority for anyone? This is the real issue. It's not aging. It's not the wrinkles, the gray hair, or even the aches and pains. The real weight pressing down on so many men and women over 60 isn't physical. It's emotional. It's having been the pillar for so many years and suddenly feeling like there's no one left to hold up, and no one holding you. It's living with the idea, sometimes spoken, sometimes silent, that without your family, your worth fades. That if your children don't check in, if your grandchildren don't call, then you no longer matter. It's a deeply rooted belief, inherited from a time when being useful to others was the very definition of existence. And when that belief shatters, the body feels it. It's not just the heart that aches. Your back does too, your muscles, your spirit. You start to feel exhausted for no reason, suffer from silent insomnia, carry a sadness that slips between the sheets. The day feels heavy, even if nothing is objectively wrong, because something is missing, something essential. And it's not that you stopped loving, it's that you stopped loving yourself. You stopped being your own center. You gave all your love away, and when the echo faded, you found yourself empty. And no, this isn't weakness. You haven't done anything wrong. This wound comes from a culture that taught you others come first, that your worth lies in serving, in caring, in giving. They made you believe self-love was selfishness, that solitude was punishment, that silence meant failure. But it's not true. It never was. What's coming, what I want to share with you, is something that can start to change that story. You don't need more phone calls, more visits. You don't need someone else to tell you that you matter. What you need is to remember what you already knew before all the forgetting. And that's what we're going to do now. Awaken, together, the truth that's already within you. Get ready, because what comes next isn't theory. It's a real chance to start living your life again, from a different place, from you. The second point I want to show you is one that, although it may seem small, has been ridiculed, misunderstood, and even denied for generations. The right of an older person to touch themselves, to embrace themselves, to caress themselves. Yes, I'm talking about something far beyond hygiene or physical care. I'm talking about self-touch as a form of presence, dignity, and self-love. For years, we've been taught that the body, after a certain age, no longer deserves attention. That affection is reserved for the young, that desire fades as if it were a lamp being turned off. That wrinkled skin no longer has the right to be touched with tenderness. But science and human experience say otherwise. Physical contact, even if it's with oneself, is a basic need at every stage of life. And when it's taken away, it doesn't just impoverish the body, it dims the soul. Touching yourself gently, applying lotion to your arms, caressing your face slowly, massaging your feet at the end of the day, is not a trivial gesture. It's a way of telling your body, you're still here, you still deserve love, you're still a living part of me. And this isn't poetry. Studies have shown that the simple act of caressing the skin releases oxytocin, a hormone linked to well-being, trust, and stress reduction. You don't need someone else to generate this response. You yourself can be that channel of connection. And yet, how many times have you stopped to touch yourself without hurry? How many times, when looking at yourself in the mirror, have you felt tenderness instead of judgment? What happens to many older people is that when they stop receiving external affection, they also forget to give it to themselves. The body becomes foreign, forgotten, and that opens the door to a deeper disconnection, no longer recognizing oneself in one's own skin. Culturally, this has been denied. We were made to believe that only the young have the right to pleasure, to touch, to bodily joy. That in old age, all of that ends. But that's not true. What ends is the habit of asking for permission to love oneself. And that permission is something you can reclaim today. A woman once told me that after losing her husband, she spent almost 2 years without touching her own body beyond what was functional. One day, she decided she deserved more. She started with something simple. When she woke up, she placed her hands on her heart for a few seconds and took a deep breath. After a month, she was applying lotion to her arms with slow movements. After a year, her way of walking had changed. It wasn't about vanity. It was dignity. It was presence. I know that for many, this may seem uncomfortable, even improper. That's why what comes next will be crucial. We're going to talk about the emotional and cultural obstacles that hold us back. Because even though we know, we don't always allow ourselves to do it. And that's the next step. We're going to dismantle those beliefs. We're going to reclaim what has always been ours. The third truth we need to review is perhaps the hardest to face, because it's not in the body, but in the mind. These are the ideas that repeat themselves like old echoes that no one questions. And although they may seem like harmless thoughts, they're the ones that often prevent us from touching ourselves again, loving ourselves, from simply being. One of those beliefs is, at this age, it's not worth it anymore. How many times have I heard this? Spoken aloud or whispered inside, It's a phrase that carries a deep resignation, as if, after a certain age, you stop deserving the good things, as if the right to feel pleasure, tenderness, or curiosity fades away with the years. But life doesn't have an expiration date for that. The body can change, yes. The skin wrinkles, rhythms slow down. But the desire to feel good, to feel loved, to enjoy, that's still there. Covered up, hidden, but alive. The restoring truth is this: it's never too late to deserve the good things, and that worth it isn't decided by age, it's decided by you. Another very harmful belief, especially in women who have given everything for others, is, my children come first, my grandchildren, others, I in the end. And for many years, this was a form of love, but over time, it can turn into a form of forgetfulness. Because if you're always at the bottom of your own list, there comes a point when you're left out. And do you know what's the saddest part? That often those others to whom you gave so much are no longer there, or don't need you the way they once did. So who's left to take care of you, if not yourself? Self-love isn't selfishness, it's memory. It's telling yourself every day, I matter too, even if it's just for me. Then there's that idea that whispers, I no longer have a purpose, as if utility were the only measure of worth. But you're not valuable because you do things. You're valuable because you are, because you've lived, because you've felt, because you're still here. Purpose isn't always a grand cause. Sometimes it's watering a plant, preparing your breakfast with care, saying something nice to your reflection. Sometimes purpose is simply taking care of yourself with respect. The restoring truth is this: you don't need to be useful to deserve love. Your existence is enough. And perhaps the hardest of all, if I'm alone, it's because I did something wrong. This thought poisons you without you realizing it, because it turns solitude, already hard on its own, into guilt. And that's an injustice. Life doesn't always respond with balance. Not everything you gave will be returned by the same hands. But that doesn't mean you failed. Loneliness isn't punishment. Sometimes it's just part of the journey. And when it's lived from self-love, it can even be a form of freedom, a way back to you, to recognize yourself without masks. These ideas don't disappear overnight, but today we've named them. We've put them in the light, and that's the first step to transforming them. In the next part, I want to share with you a concrete, loving, everyday way to start this journey back to yourself. A simple but powerful gesture so you can begin to inhabit your life from a different place. Because yes, it's possible, and because you deserve it. I want you to imagine a very simple scene. You're standing in front of the mirror one ordinary morning. You haven't brushed your hair yet. Maybe you haven't even washed your face. But there you are, with the eyes you've always had, with the body that has lived so much. And instead of rushing, instead of pointing out what you don't like, you pause. You place one hand on your chest. You breathe. And you tell yourself, even if it's silently, today, I accompany myself. That's the gesture. It's not a complicated ritual. It's not a technique. It's a choice, a way to start the day with you, not against you. Many older people begin their days by reviewing what hurts, what's missing, what's wrong, but this small change can transform everything. Starting the day as if you're greeting yourself, as if you're thanking yourself, as if you're promising not to abandon yourself. The proposal I want to offer you today isn't about goals, but about moments, because self-love at this stage isn't built through great feats, but through small, repeated, meaningful decisions. You can start with something as simple as slowly applying lotion to your hands, watching how the skin responds. Not like someone rushing to complete a task, but like someone honoring what's still alive. Another powerful practice is sitting in silence for a few minutes each day. Not to meditate, unless you want to, just to be with yourself. You can have a cup of tea, look out the window, let the thoughts pass by. You don't have to do anything else. Just be. Because sometimes what we need most is to listen to ourselves without any noise. You can also start a small journal. It doesn't have to be long. 2 or 3 lines at the end of the day are enough. Something like, "I felt good today when I walked through the garden," or "I liked the way I spoke to myself this morning." Writing it down is affirming it. It's giving form to self-love. It's making it visible that there are moments of light, even if the day has been gray. And if you feel ready, at the end of each day you can place your hands on your face and tell yourself, you did the best you could. Even if there were mistakes, even if there was tiredness. This gesture isn't to reward you, it's to not forget yourself. It's to remind you that you deserve tenderness even on your worst days. None of this is mandatory. Everyone finds their own way. But the key is consistency, that each act becomes a way to rebuild yourself from the inside. Because when you begin to treat yourself with respect, something changes. The body responds. The mind calms down. The heart opens. Don't expect immediate results. What matters is that you start. Because this path isn't about achievements, it's about presence. And now that you've started to see how you can care for yourself from the inside, it's also important to prepare for what may arise. Because not everything is easy. Sometimes there are resistances, doubts, even old pains that resurface. And we'll talk about that in the next part. So that, when they appear, you'll know how to get through them without giving up. Because what you're doing, even if it seems small, is deeply brave, and it deserves support. And when you start this journey of returning to yourself, of touching yourself with respect, of speaking to yourself with tenderness, something awakens. But something also hurts. Because it's not easy. It's not. It's not just applying cream, sitting in silence, or writing a few words. It's about going through layers and layers of forgetfulness, judgment, accumulated sadness. And that's when the obstacles appear. Not to stop you, but to help you recognize them and embrace them with patience. The first one is usually shame. A shame that doesn't always have a name, but is felt in the body as a break. How can I look at myself with love when I've been avoiding myself for years? How can I caress myself when I was taught that this isn't done? This shame is not yours. It was given to you, imposed on you, taught to you, and you can return it. You can recognize it, speak to it with gentleness, and move forward. Because you did nothing wrong, by wanting to reconnect with yourself, then comes doubt. That inner voice that says, does this really work? Am I just making a fool of myself? But that doubt, deep down, is fear. Fear of getting your hopes up, of starting something you can't sustain. Fear that even by loving yourself, you'll still feel pain. And that fear also deserves to be heard. Tell it that yes, you understand, but that this time you're going to try anyway. That you don't need certainties to begin, just intention. Impatience can also show up because we've spent decades believing that everything must have visible, quick, measurable results, and when we don't see them, we think we've failed. But self-love is not measured, it's not accounted for. Sometimes it's only felt in the way you breathe, in how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, in the way you choose to rest without guilt. There is no stopwatch for tenderness. And maybe at some point, the old pain will return. The one you thought was asleep, the one you thought you had already overcome. Because when you connect with yourself, you also connect with what hurt. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're more alive. You no longer need to numb yourself to move forward. You can look at your history with new eyes, without denying anything, but without getting stuck there. What's important is that you know all of this is part of the process. You're not failing if you feel fear, if you cry, if it's hard. On the contrary, you're doing the bravest thing you can do, recovering your relationship with yourself after so much neglect. And that in itself is already an act of love, dude. So don't give up. If today you manage to place a hand on your heart, that's enough. If tomorrow you manage to sit in silence for 2 minutes, that's progress. It doesn't matter the pace. What matters is the direction. And you've already started. You've already chosen. What comes now is to hold that gesture, even if it's small. Because every time you choose to be with yourself, you're saying, I'm still worthy. I still deserve. In the next part, we'll integrate all of this into a bigger, more complete view. So it's not just a series of isolated gestures, but a way of living with more meaning, more freedom, and more love. Because yes, you can still choose how to live this stage, and what's coming can give you a new reason to smile. You've given yourself something very valuable by making it this far. It's not just a video, it's not just words. It's a different way of looking at yourself, a soft but profound invitation to return to you. Because what you've just heard isn't theory, it's a reminder that you can still care for yourself, you can still listen to yourself, you can still love yourself. Not for what you do, not for who's with you, but for who you are when no one is watching. Today we talked about something that isn't often spoken aloud, but that many older adults feel every day. The sensation of no longer having a place, of not being seen, of not being needed. But what we discovered together is that there's a place that's never lost, even if everything else is gone. That place is you. And in that place, you can build a refuge, you can plant self-love, you can inhabit yourself with dignity. You don't need to do everything we talked about. You don't need to do it perfectly. Just starting with something small is enough. Maybe tomorrow, when you wake up, you'll place your hands on your chest. Maybe you'll look at yourself in the mirror without judgment, just with presence. Maybe you'll write a line to remind yourself that you're still here. That gesture, no matter how small it may seem, is a revolution. It's a declaration of love. It's a way of saying, I won't forget myself. Remember, it's not too late. Your body still responds. Your soul still sings, even if sometimes it's softly, and you have the full right, to feel good at your own pace, in your own way. No one can take that from you. Only you can decide how to inhabit yourself, how to care for yourself, how to love yourself. And that decision can be made today. No rush, no pressure, no guilt, just love. If any of this resonated with you, I invite you to write a phrase in the comments that sums it up. One that accompanies you, that represents you. Today I'll propose a very simple one. I choose to take care of myself. Let those 2 words serve as an anchor, as a commitment, as a hug. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, share it with them. We never know when some words might come at just the right time and make the difference that no one else made. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Remember, this channel is your space, your company, your refuge. Here, the conversation doesn't end. Here we keep going, discovering together ways to live with more truth, more presence, and more love. I'll see you in the next video, but most of all, I hope you see yourself a little more each day.